Thank you very much, Riz.
Tell me about this new song, My People. I'm just wondering what made you write it and what you hoped it would achieve.
Well, of course, we were watching the developments, what was happening in Egypt and Tunisia, and like many, you know, I was very inspired, and I suddenly wrote this song, you know, called My People. Then we posted it up on Facebook to just get kind of a bit more involvement from people around the world and get them to send in their sort of voices singing the chorus. Then we arranged a session very quickly in Berlin with a few musicians, and you know, all of a sudden the track was there. And Berlin was very special, I think, also because, you know, that's the city which has become a symbol of peace, really, where you know, the wall fell, you know, 2 decades ago, and people were emancipated, you know, allowed to move freely again, and that was the importance of that city. We actually recorded it about 100 yards from where the wall used to be.
So I gather,
you know, so really, this was just an effort by myself, if you like, but also together with a whole lot of people around the world who sent in their voices to send a message of support from free people to people who want to be free.
Tell me about that, because you had so many diverse nationalities contact you, and I know you sampled voices and put it together. How did that work?
Well, you know, they just sent in, I mean, some of them, you know, we couldn't use them, but because they were so noisy and they didn't quite sing in time, but the majority, you know, were perfect, and we just slotted them in, because now you can do it all in digital on, you know, Pro Tools, and so therefore we just lined them up, you know, and then we suddenly, when the first time we heard it, we were just amazed how beautiful it was, this kind of, you know, this moment. Which is kind of historic in a way, getting people to sing together, you know, on a track through Facebook.
Now, so social networking, which has obviously been the trigger for political and social change in the Arab world, and is continuing to be that trigger, also played a part in your song. And I wonder how you regard the way that social networking has developed as a power for change.
Yeah, it's quite an amazing thing, you know, that this sort of internet-generated initiation of a revolution, if you like, you know, could only happen really in these times, you know, with this kind of technology. So people are, you know, using their mobiles, using their computers and their laptops to start something which is quite incredible, because, in fact, I was feeling quite disenchanted, because I was thinking, well, you know, this virtual world, there were so many in this generation right now who are kind of living a virtual life, you know, not quite real. And I thought, you know, I felt a bit sad, because I was thinking about the day of the 60s and how vibrant it all was, you know, when it was all on vinyl and everything. And you could buy actual records, you know, they weren't just things which came on your laptop, you know. So, but then this thing happened, you know, and so it shows you the incredible power the internet can be, you know, when it's used correctly for ideals.
Do you think the Arab world is open to the idea of this kind of unity through music? And of course, music has been such a powerful, you know, factor in so much in the past, in revolutions and so on. Is the Arab world ready for this kind of getting together under a song kind of attitude, or are they still too preoccupied with the politics of what's going on?
I think everybody's always got a bit of a time for a song, you know, and you know, looking back, if you look at the civil rights movement, you know, the era that I grew up in, you know, that was an amazingly powerful instrument for the change and the wind of change which happened, which blew through that time. And, you know, we shall overcome, you've got the times they are changing. And even before that, if you look at the root of popular music today, a lot of it came from, you know, the sort of the cotton fields and the blues, you know, which sort of was in a way a way in which people who are stuck in enslavement were able to sort of emancipate themselves, even if they couldn't do it through the, you know, without chains, they could do it by singing. And so you got, you know, Take This Hammer by, you know, Lead Belly, and leading up to Chain Song and Strange Fruit. Right. All these things were incredibly important for people, you know, to help change the world, or the world that they wanted to live in.
And Yusuf, of course, it was 40 years ago that you, as Cat Stevens, released that huge hit, Peace Train. Let our viewers have a listen to that.
been crying lately, thinking about the world as it is. Why must we go on hating? Why can't we live there? It's out on the edge of darkness. There rides a peace train. A peace train, take this country and take it home again. A peace train sounding loud. Ride on the peace train. Come on, peace train.
Peace Train from 40 years ago. It seems that that theme of peace and unity lingers, of course, and across the decades. You know, I want to get an email question to you, Yusuf, because we had quite a few viewers write in when they knew you were coming on, and some of them are, you know, political questions as well. I want to get one to you from Saudi Arabia, from Abdullah Khan, who wrote in from Riyadh, who said, "These revolutions don't mean anything until American influence is eradicated from this region of the world." Is it as simple as that? I mean, America seems to have been out of this picture. It seems like it's a real people movement in the Middle East.
Yeah, I think so, and this is quite an interesting point, that because, you know, people for a long time, you know, they believe in unseen forces, and forces. Of course, there are sort of there are those kind of currents and things going on, and there are those conspiracies, if you like. But then the whole conspiracy theory, I don't believe in, because I believe in a higher power than just the power of a nation, you know, a very wealthy nation, very technically, you know, progressed nation. I believe there's another power that when people start to change, you know, there's a verse in the Quran, for instance, that says, you know, God doesn't change the condition of a people until they change that which is with themselves. So really, it's all in the hands of people and in the minds and in the hearts of people if they decide something. You know, and this movement for change, it does need leadership. I must admit, there is a point where you need someone to arise, you know, to define the moment. If you go back thousands of years, you'll see that we had prophets. You know, we had Moses, you know, leading the children of Israel out of Egypt from the grips of the Pharaoh. You know, but today, I suppose now it's the time where you're looking for leadership, and so that people can actually unite behind a vision.
Now, of course, some star power helps, and we had a viewer who wrote in about the role that musicians can play, and this came in from Joseph Maguire, who wrote saying, "I know you remember revolutionary singers like Bob Marley, John Lennon and Pete Seeger. Can you talk about the musicians' role in youth movements and how music and poetry can be used to inspire and teach people?"
Yeah, well, they're very good examples. You know, Bob Marley, you know, he was a real believer and a real activist, you may say, a musical activist, who inspired a lot of people, and the Jamaicans, particularly the reggae movement and Rastafarian, you know, faith. John Lennon, of course, had an amazing impact, if you think about it, and of course he wasn't well loved also by Nixon at that point, at that time, you know, when he was kind of speaking out against the war in Vietnam. They didn't want him in America, and so he went through his own kind of personal problem. If you go back to Charlie Chaplin, he had the same problem. He was kind of branded a socialist for speaking up about people's rights, you know, so it's a whole